Hi, Nick Collier here, and this is my shop. Come join me. We'll have some fun. Well, Nick Collier here one more time, and we've got a project for you you're not going to believe. I can't tell you what this does, but I can tell you how I'm going to do it. So, as usual, my customer wants to be a little more secret, and this one's going to take us through the next month or two easily. So we'll be back in a second, and I'll show you the materials that we're going to use and what we're going to make. And here we go one more time, sunny California. This is hail coming down. It looks like a popcorn hail, pretty lightweight, but it is getting the ground white. And here we go again. I'm guessing that it's just going to last a few minutes, but who knows? But you can see that most of the snow is melted, although we still have a foot of snow out in the garden there. And hey, it is California. And this is March. And I couldn't think of a better place to sweat out coronavirus right here. Crank up the fire and get to work. We'll swing you around, show you the shop a little bit. I mean, since we have time, right? Okay, I'm going to bring it in and close this door. Right here next to me is the main gate that we're going to put on the property someday, whenever I get it finished. I brought it in because it was sitting outside and rusting, which isn't a bad deal. It's just that I wanted to weld it up a lot, and it's been a pretty wet winter, and welding was not possible. So and onward to the main bench, and you recognize the shaper. And over in this corner, let me turn on a light here. Is the plasma cutter, which I always wanted to hook up to the pattern torch, but have not been able to yet. The pattern torch, oh man, it is a tool and a half. Comes out of the 60s, pre-computer anything. It's got solenoids and toggle switches. And it's a very cool tool. Picked up this clausing lathe last summer for $600. It's 12 by 48 or something like that. A nice lathe, and really the first lathe that I ever owned. Not this exact one, but this exact model back in the late 60s. And that was a score, and that came with all kinds of tooling. We'll bring it around here. Chucks and steady rests, and oh, I can't tell you what. So we'll move on. Of course, my Bridgeport you've seen before. Now we'll just walk a little further down. The Moss lathe, looking good. Man, that is one hell of a tool. That thing just keeps running and running and running. Just last week I took the apron off and went in there thinking that, you know, maybe it was something was going bad, and just wanted to have a look at it. And it was fine. A couple of oil holes had gotten a little plugged. I cleaned those out, oiled everything back up and put it back together. Coming around to the wood stove, And behind the wood stove is my little south bin that I've had for probably, oh, I don't know, 35 years now. And it's a great tool. And up until about a week ago, it had a loose belt, and I just kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And finally, I went in and cut some of the belt out and relaced it, and it, oh man, it's running so good. So behind that, we can kind of come around. The hydraulic press that I made, 4 or 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago maybe. Can you see that? I don't know, it's not looking too good. Let's turn on the light. That's a little better. Spin around. We're going to come around to the big and the small power hacksaws. Coming further around, we will tap into my 2 drill presses, the Craftsman drill press and this old Taiwanese drill press that I literally have on slow speed, and I have a chamfering tool in there, and I just always leave it in there, and whenever I need to chamfer a hole, I just come and turn that drill press on. Now the back side of the shop you probably have never seen, because it's mostly wood. Saw, and a lot of storage, paint. Way at the back end there's a joiner and a bunch of bolts and nuts and an extra bench and, you know, a couple of other saws. And that is the shop. Well, okay, we'll turn around here, spin around this way, and we've got, and I'll turn the light on. Good. We've got a couple of chop saws, and a kiln in the back there. Because from time to time, my wife or I will go into the pottery room and we'll do some ceramics. And that is pretty much all the tools I have in here. Oh yeah, well, there's more. All right, here's a whole nother batch of raw materials that we're going to use. Most of what you're seeing here is going to be cut up into 3-inch or 6-inch segments. So we got a lot of cutting to do. Of course, we're not going to show you that so much as the welding and the machining and everything else that goes around that. All right, here's what we're going to make with all of that metal laying out there. And remember, we're going to make 30 of these units. Now, the main body of the piece is being cut out by a company in Sacramento. And then, of course, we do the bending, and we all the holes will be drilled, and then we make a ring for the bearing and weld that onto the outside. And part of this part goes on the inside, and this part goes on the inside. It's quite a project. Now everything on this side is objects that we're going to make times 30, right? Everything on this side is our jigs that I've made over the last couple of years. By the way, I've done this project for this woman. This will be the 3rd time, the 3rd set of 30. And so each time I did it, I built another jig. And this time we're going to have probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 more jigs to build while we get this process going. And that's pretty much it for the moment. First thing we're going to make is the cam, and that we are in the process of cutting out as we speak. We'll be back. All right, well, we've started with the 10-foot bar of this 1.5-inch material, and we're cutting 3-inch segments, and of course we're cutting 30 of them. So, off and rolling. All right, well, the next thing we got to do is cut 120 of these half round pieces, and we'll cut these in the saw. Okay, well, our next cut is at 6.5 inches on this 3-inch 5/16 plate. Okay, well, one of the crusher plates needs to be a 1/4 inch thick. All the other little plates are 3/16. So we got a piece of 6-inch here, and we're cutting it widthwise. Just cut away. Well, okay, so we need to take this 1.5-inch Schedule 80 pipe and cut just a little under 3-inch segments. 30 of them, of course. Okay, we're taking this plate and we're doing a little weld prep for it, getting down below the fire scale so that we make sure and have a good weld. Let's go for it. All right, done deal. All right, so we've got our little segments out of the 1.5-inch stock. Now what we're going to do is make a cam out of this. So we have to drill a hole off center, and we already have the chuck set up to drill that hole off center. So all we have to do is put the piece in. Actually, I've done almost 10 pieces so far. And I don't know if you can see it, but I have a little white dot right here that tells me that I loosen this chuck jaw and this chuck jaw, and then I tighten these back up, and I'll end up pretty much in the same place. And this cam isn't really a super accurate setting. We're just putting it off center somewhat. So then I come in with my chuck, well, my fancy turret head, and start the process. Ugh. All right. All right, we make sure a 5/8 rod's going to fit in there, and it's going to fit just nicely, and we're all set. All right, well, more deburring. Will it ever end? Well, okay, the cam that we've made has to have a shaft to rotate on. So I got some cold roll here, and that'll push through, and then we'll have the shaft. Of course, we need to do some machining on both ends of the shaft, but for now, we're just cutting lengths, and we're cutting 31 of them. Okay, so we've got these sleeves, and we need to bore them out. And if you look at the sleeve, it's made from 1.5 inch pipe, which always has a weld seam on the inside of it, and we need to get rid of that weld seam. And at the same time, why not clean up the interior? So we're going to do just a real light bore. And as you can see, it cleaned out the interior. Not totally clean. You can see some gaps right in there, but it's not a necessary thing. All we're looking for is fairly smooth. The cam is going to go inside here. It's going to be loose. It needs to be loose in order for this in order for the action to work properly. It needs to have some slop to it. So we're in good shape. Let's go with some more. All right, we're over on the clausing. We're going to take our sleeves and trim the inside and the outside, deburr it, and then at the same time square up these faces. Hey, and I just want to take a minute here to thank my supporters and you subscribers. I put out a little note for some help, financial, and I got a reasonably good response. And thank you very much. Also, I got a note from Jeff, and he has a Henley lathe, 1946 Henley. And I guess he just got the lathe and he doesn't have very much information on it. And he wants to see if somebody out there has a Henley and knows a little bit more than he does, because I think he's got a few things to fix on it. So if you have a Henley, or you know somebody who does, hey, you guys can talk about Henleys.